So here we go with episode number 6 of Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Kind of short space for this episode as my notepad does a run in there 10 seconds into the broadcast. It does tend to stooge me out when I try to open something in this, but the nice thing, I can pull this up right here and I get queued up there. You see the first episode of Launch TV that I had. This is the deliberation I went through in last night's episode, thinking like who I might bring in for this Launch TV number 2. So I'm thinking Jonathan Gresham as a partner with Cain Velasquez. I need to bring in somebody that's highly ranked enough to not seem out of place in that semi-main, and that can still go, so it can't be just like a name guy that I want to go 3 minutes. Because that's what I'm thinking with this spot right here. So this is, even from last night, this is a new patch, updated to 1.06. I'm not sure what's been fixed, but I don't know that many things left that were particularly broken. Although I've just barely scratched the surface with this game. I'm sure there are things I don't know about. And that's me, and that's my company. And Launch Wrestling is a child company in this game that serves as a feeder company for All Elite Wrestling. Launch is an all-men's promotion. They also set up one called Sharp. And that's also AI-controlled. So the only thing I'm controlling is the men's promotion, Launch. Sharp has done some hiring, as you can see. Not a bad start considering it was out there. That's funny, the guy, Gary Woodard, the guy that designed this awesome mod, the Killing the Business mod. Sharp hired him? Of course, it's not like it's some sort of a super logical thing with my company. I've got, well, they assigned just by random Dave Prazak to be the CEO. But I'm able to use, because Dave, working on broadcasting with Lenny Leonard, they've got a lot of experience together. But in this case, I am the booker, and I wasn't afraid to put myself over as far as because I'm a broadcaster in real life, a sports broadcaster, so I wasn't afraid to put myself over a little bit in the ratings. So I think it's going to actually work better for the long term, having myself working with Lenny Leonard and then using Dave Prazak for like sit-down interview kind of stuff. I wasn't sure if it was going to let me do that because, look, he's listed as the CEO, and that is a pretty intensive job, at least in most companies. But it's a game, first of all. It's pro wrestling, so never say never for anything. All right. So when I was about to fall asleep last night on the stream, I drastically underestimated how tired I was. So I basically made it to week number 3 Monday, and then I was out. So limited amount of time because of the upcoming Double or Nothing AEW pay-per-view show. It's about 90 minutes from right now, as I understand it. There's a pre-show of some sort, but I'm not sure. There was a pre-show on YouTube earlier, but anyway, the point is that the actual pay-per-view itself starts, it says right there on the screen from what they say, 8 Eastern, and you can figure it out from there. I put the Central Time Zone sports fan paranoia. You see a time listed for something, but there's not like an ET or CT next to it for Eastern Time or Central Time, and you never know for sure. Because some systems or some layouts will have it where it automatically updates the time for your location, but it doesn't always happen that way. So it gets a little bit, requires some planning, a little double checking from time to time. But such is life in the Central Time Zone. All right, so here are my 3 that I'm going to bring in. I had 3 spots to fill. These are all one night only deals I'm about to set up here. You know, the deal's already struck, but I'll show you. Actually, I made a mistake with this one where I was going to have TJP as a one-off, and I signed him as a ongoing. Although the way these are worded, either side can terminate the deal, and you walk away, and just keep somebody around. The nonsense of booking somebody on a pay-per-appearance basis like you would in 2016, but then give them some sort of downside guarantee, even though it wasn't like you were, offering them any sort of, or expecting anything from them as far as loyalty for X number of months, because they could walk away at any point. If that makes any sense. I'm not sure I can explain that one very well. Whatever the case, so I'm going to have TJP pull up a thing here. So with Gresham teaming up with Velasquez against Slater and Gulak. In the game, Bob Holly announced he was going to be retiring in a couple of months, so all the time now to have him come in, and we're going to try and get I've got like some team behind me. The idea is to get Connor over as a serious single star. Alicia Fox was hired in the game by AEW to be a manager, and so they sent her. There's a women's promotion as well, as I just explained, but the idea was for Alicia to come work for Launch as a manager. And so I had Connor, who I signed. The further we can get him from, the further we can get him from being part of the ascension into people's mind, the better, I would think. So there's multiple variables in play, but if nothing else, this will get Alicia Fox some experience and at least develop some sort of an initial track record that AEW, the parent company, can then in turn look at and make some decisions about accordingly. So I have, all right, so I could do a withdrawal here, but basically you do the negotiations up front, and they tell you it's okay, and then you go ahead and lock it in. Unless you've got something where you had a major circumstance change within the time of making the offer and then time to lock it in, you could change your mind. But in my experience with this game, going back earlier versions of it as well, that's not how it typically happens. Once you're locked in, you usually want to go with it. So Gresham, one appearance. I mean, I'd love to have him for all the time, but he works for like 4 different companies, and the idea is to bring him in a rather high-profile spot in my semi-main and have him take the loss. So we'll get one appearance, because it'd be tough to have much faith in him from a booking standpoint. He has these other companies. I'll pull it up. I'm not sure if it says unwilling or unable to negotiate. Maybe because we already negotiated the deal. But my point in bringing this up is see Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and Revolution Pro and Warrior Wrestling. And I imagine these companies, as this game plays out, will start to have more and more shows. Because this started as of like Monday of week 1 in June 2020. So we're only 2 weeks in. And this game can take a while to progress as such. So here is the upcoming schedule, or the schedule for the month, I should say. Because my next show is tomorrow night, game-wise. It's a Tuesday night weekly deal. You see up here at the top, it's Monday the 3rd week of June 2020. So if I had wanted him for a Wednesday night, Ring of Honor, as a much larger company than me, would get the edge over him. Warrior Wrestling is ranked ahead of me right now. That's the charity promotion out of Chicago Heights that has... I'm very curious about how their business model works, because I don't think I've ever seen anybody pull it off the way they do. They raise money for scholarships, which is great. I just haven't been able to figure out in my head. The businessman in me is continuously wondering. But then if you're Warrior Wrestling, now you would think the Ring of Honor show is going to be of higher precedent over what Warrior Wrestling would do. But I guess that is reflected here is it's RH listed first, although I don't know if it's always going to be listed first if you're the larger company or the preferred company, or if it's just alphabetical. That I don't know. All I do know is that for tomorrow night, he's available. Plug him in the semi-main. Hopefully have a great match. He'll put over Slater. Because Heath Slater, I mean, as much as people might want to goof on him thinking of his WWE stuff, I mean, he's actually got a lot of talent. Just WWE is just not keen on letting people show their talent if they're not one of the chosen few. And even then, there's an upper limit. But he ended up having an excellent match, great match with Chris Hero. And that was a nice way to start off the World Championship for the company. And I realize it's a little silly to have a World Champion for this feeder promotion, but what I wanted to call it, so that's what I did. Complete the signing. We got Gresham. And then with Bob Hawley, it's a similar deal as one appearance. Not exactly going to break the budget. I am curious because right now I'm at 74,000 plus in the red for the month. That includes a lot of hires, a lot of deals that were made, all of that. And the last show I had 12 fans, because you have to start like bottom of the barrel as far as your popularity goes, and then kind of reset from there and like build your way up. You can't go any further if you're down at 0. And as strange as it might be to have some rather big name people on the show, that's just the way it limits you. But as long as the AEW parent company isn't going to complain about this too much, I should be okay. If not, we'll find some workarounds. All right. Where I have it is like 102 to 18 split. That's because for television, the way it's set up, it's a little different versus events. Events are going to have longer or more time for matches, less time for promos. And because I have to formulate everything as a weekly event, it's more of the in-ring and less of the interviews. But I like it that way. So I can... My way of filling in the names is similar to how you'd see like on like the New Japan's English site. If there's a tag match and somebody's a mystery partner or haven't been announced yet, is an X. That helps me visually at a quick glance to see who do I need to, or how many spots do I need to fill for a given card. And then sign Bob Hawley. And the idea is not to embarrass Bob Hawley, but it's to set up Connor as his absolute, just unbeatable killing machine. I have no idea how the interactions or chemistry will be between Alicia Fox and Connor, but there's a reason that I'm working as the child promotion. This is a place where you can find this sort of thing out. Maybe it'll work great, maybe it'll be just mediocre, maybe it'll will not work at all. I'll have to quickly change course. So the main event though is for the vacant launch World Tag Team Championship, Revival FTR against Hawkins and Ryder, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder from WWE until very recently. The challenge with Hawkins and Ryder on the last show, where's the part about the go-away heat? Unhappy crowd. For whatever reason, the fans were not pleased to see these particular people. And that includes half my main event with Hawkins and Ryder. But I had 12 people at the show. So I don't know to what degree I should take that into account. So I've somewhat hedged my bets as far as the Revival will be over, these three will be over, and we'll get Gresham in there, and he's popular enough, he should be good. Plus he can work in the ring. Yehai's a question mark, because Yehai, you might have seen, is also on that list. His name's on two different lines, but I had him win the dark match, or the second of two dark matches on the first show. And so it's not unreasonable to set him up for the initial challenger, the first ever time for a champion as the sprint champion to defend the title. And the concept, and I'll repeat this, I know people will tune in between, so if it seems repetitive, please forgive me, but it's like when I'm calling a high school football game, I get the very casual fans that have like a nephew on the team or a cousin or some relative that they're watching from way far away, and they don't need to know everything about a 3-4 defense and the outside linebacker blitz. But I also have a lot of people that are coaches and scouts on like the college level and some probably even the pro level. And so I'm trying to provide information that be helpful for them as well. Point being, you got to know your audience and target accordingly, even when you can't. Try and make it as palatable as possible for everybody. Okay, so I made the note here about Ryan Nova was the third one. To have him work that tag team dark match. I'm going to try teaming up Danhausen and Cassidy. That's Trip Cassidy. I know I've got Big Cass, but it's certainly not trying to correlate the two, just a coincidence. The fans were not happy with Shannon Moore in the last show. He's on that list. Oh, they didn't have like a very good match, so I don't know. Although I say that, I don't see him on here. either way, we'll find out how the crowd responds accordingly. Turn over my shoulder to look back at the television to make sure everything is still set up for AEW Double or Nothing. They make it super easy to order. I mean, there are other companies that could take lessons from that. And I'm not even like trying to pick on anybody in particular. I'm saying they do a good job with it. At least in my experience. ACH was a challenger on the first show for the Sprint Championship. And the deal there, it's a title defended every week on television. And I'm not quite sure how for like a pay-per-view type event, if I would include that as well, but I'm sure it would be doable. But if you're not healthy enough to go, there's some discretion for the promoter. Somebody's out for like 6 days, and it means they can't defend it on that particular Wednesday night. You can find workarounds. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. Or if you're not available, you just have them vacated anyway. Say, sorry, pal, you can't go. We got to have somebody new in there. And then that will set up, inevitably, a rematch between the champion who never lost the title and the person ends up getting the belt back, or getting the belt in the match to decide a new champ. Now, there are certain rules or whatever I haven't really thought about as far as, well, what happens if somebody's injured, can't defend, and it's a vacant title, and then 2 wrestlers vie for that title, and they go the time limit draw of 10 minutes. But you know what? I'll figure that out if and when necessary. At least I'm giving it too much thought. So a quick look at the roster. Let's see right here. Now, I will remember the search parameters from before, but I think I cleared it before my last check. You said hit reset. Search. Oh. I'm not sure what had been toggled, but I knew that list was too short since I didn't have to do any scrolling down. So these guys are referees. Now, there was an important element from the last show with the road agents. I decided intentionally just let the computer handle as far as who was going to ref and who was going to do road agent producers, as they call them in WWE, because they have to change everything. Oh, I'm just trying to get this notepad thing to adjust to my bottom right-hand corner out of the view of the live stream. It blows up real big. Although it is nice to be able to just pull it up when I need to, so I can't complain too much. You can try to turn a negative into a positive. Well, if this were a game like Fire Pro Wrestling World, I wouldn't have to set it in the corner the way I've got this one. You can't see my screen, the full screen, but this is the top right of my corner, and this part, the bottom here, is not too far from the midway point, like a little low and on the southwest side. But point is, I had to put it in that corner. I have to do it every time like that so that it shows up, and I got to check. And so forgive me if there's like a little bit of an off, the spacing issues, a little bit of blue from my blank background, this blue background. I mean, that bleeds through, not intentional. Anyway, so the easiest way to do this would be to just advance, read through the news. So like Ryan Nova. So I mean, he's going to be a 15 popularity, but this is for him to work in the first of what I think will be 3 pre-show matches. And that way I can have Nova drop the fall. He's teaming up with Max Stardom. And then I guess I can just pull this up real quick to show you where it says DEV for developmental. These are the individuals sent down from AEW to my company, Launch Wrestling. Alicia Fox is the manager, the other 4 is wrestlers. And I get some reps in. Some of the road agents. Come on. I went through and looked at the results from the last show. Gail Kim, Gregory Helms both did very well. Sabin and Scott D'Amore did okay. They didn't have people complaining about them. But Hawkins and Amazing Red, I was really surprised at Amazing Red, they didn't like it, but multiple times they made it clear he's not someone I should use. So, with that in mind, I'll use these 4. Try to scroll over, but realize it's out of the view of the camera that you'll be able to see, or out of the screen. As you can see here, there are various companies. I'll ever scroll through these. I don't want to stay too long on this because I am up against a time limit with AEW Double or Nothing coming up here in a little while. So, PWG signed Elijah Burke. I would think it could be fun to play as PWG. In many ways, they tried to maintain the status quo as much as possible because it was something that worked. Why break it? Why fix something that's not broken? It really hurt they had to move out of that building, that American Legion Hall. I think it was the very small building, but had great atmosphere out in Reseda. There's Sharp, the company I designed to be the women's wrestling developmental side for AEW. And I mentioned it before, but I think it makes so much more sense for something like that to have women have an opportunity to work those, upper main or main events while they're still learning, get that experience under their belt. So when the opportunity comes along in AEW, then they're going to be ready to go, and the management in turn would have more confidence in them having seen what they've already done. Or at least that's the mindset. I don't have to really worry about it because it's AI controlled for the feeder company and it's AI controlled for the parent company, All Elite Wrestling. Warrior Wrestling, though, they've run into some trouble. No longer have New Japan playing nice with them. And they're not sending anybody on an excursion over there. I thought about going for one of the American young lions that have been in the LA dojo. I looked at Carl Fredericks. I pulled his info up, and I didn't quite think that was going to be a good fit for me the way he's portrayed here. The stats and all, but between Alex Coughlin and Clark Connors, got a couple of options. Although I do have to stretch some realism because in real life, you can't just go in there and on your own just book a LA Dojo trainee young lion just to come work for you, especially with a product that's being broadcast. Although at this point my roster is larger than my audience, it seems like, as far as 12 fans at the first show, but you got to start somewhere. Let me take a quick look here and find the notes. So, a lot of guys in Japan in this game have jumped back and forth. Kento Miyahara ends up in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Backlash, 33,000 fans for Backlash. I bet that should be a great match, though. Lesnar against McIntyre and Styles. And I say that as somebody that watches almost no WWE programming of any sort at this point, but all three of those guys have talent. That actually sounds like a pretty good show they had. I mean, Orton I find very boring, but he's very steady. He's not going to botch a whole lot. And Aleister Black, super talented. From what I've heard, they've wasted his ability, but I guess he had a cage match there and the video game part. 33,000. Where do they run? Will they run Gillette Stadium? That's square 85 for Kevin Owens and Jeff Hardy against Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins. Dare to Dream. Asuka against Shayna Baszler. This really is a good show. I mean, I should be cheering for this competition, but I gotta call it like I see it. And this is new for this game as far as the level of detail you can find out about what another promotion did on a show. I don't quite know why it doesn't list match time. I guess that's something the computer doesn't really take into account. Look at that, more than 7 million viewers on the WWE Network. You know, the sad part is if they would have worked it right, they probably could have reached that level. Maybe someday. Anyway, I'm not going to go through their stuff too much, just a long show. I gotta keep scrolling down. Okay, that was a bit much. It's like they have 2 shows together. Now, Jordan Devlin versus Kalisto versus Cedric Alexander sounds like a great match. Although, why you would have it for the NXT Cruiserweight title and a WWE main roster show in a Hell in a Cell early on the card. Gronk holding on to the 24/7 title. I hate what they've done with War Machine. When they were the War Raiders in NXT, they managed to keep enough their old identity that it wasn't off-putting. And I could see how War Machine might be difficult from a trademark standpoint. But then the main roster call-up happens, and that's not usually a good thing for NXT talent as far as their either in-ring or their character goes. Not both. So I guess that's the World Championship. That's why WWE has so many belts. But their world title, they won't call it a world title, it's just the WWE Championship. I don't get that at all. But there's a lot of things I don't get about that company. And the rest of the results. Gary getting put over. Webb victory for best announcer in wrestling today. Alright, so we'll advance to Tuesday. This is going to be the day of the show, but the way it works in this game, you go to the AM portion, like the morning. It's typically how you see it listed, like when you first load up, or looking to load up from a saved file, it'll tell you, it said it would say Tuesday, week 3, AM. There's hot shot left and right. Bray Wyatt and AJ Styles against Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio. Get me Chad Gable. That's what I'm saying. Wait a minute. Did I click on the wrong thing? Oh, it was a 6-man tag. I'm gonna scroll over. I wonder why they put Gable between the Street Profits. It's a little weird. Kind of like how they put Andrade or La Sombra, as he's shown there from his CMLL persona. Anyway. Check email. Okay, so they've hired somebody else. AEW has. Find out about Joey Eastman. We're good on announcers right now, pal. But another manager? Okay. Almost a complete unknown. Was he 39? Okay, we'll put him in a match. Don't have to worry about that. He was below what we need anyway on the announcer level. As far as being a manager goes. The microphone isn't all that. But they're sitting him down, so I'll find a place for him. I already have Dave Prazak, who's my CEO. It's kind of like the sit-down interview type role. And have him introduce or welcome the fans. And I'm not sure how much I'm going to stick with Dave Prazak every show opening it up, but it makes sense. I had that for the debut episode and for this upcoming second episode of my television show, which are really weekly events just labeled as television to make it cooperate with the game. There's been a lot of CPU decided teams being broken up, created, factions dissolved. Broken fingers. Apollo Crews was really good when he was working at Azuha Nation. Okay, this makes sense. They hire a woman. AEW does, so they send her to their women's developmental promotion. Interesting to see how they assign that? So we get Eastman, and Sharp gets Crazy Mary Dobson. Everybody's trying to find people, it looks like. Well, I think we're ready to go then for television. Let me double check and make sure I'm not overlooking something. There's the debt, but that should erase at the end of the month. No prestige yet, 52% momentum. That's why I checked. Let's see, there are no launch TV shows. Okay. That threw me off there for a second, but I have to reach medium size before they let me have a television show. But I can have weekly events that stream on YouTube that they'll allow me to do. There's some stuff with pre-booking. And normally I don't mess with that much because typically the promotions that I've run in past times playing this game try to avoid too much as far as being storyline heavy. So I guess in total I signed 4 people to come in, and then TJP is going to stick around because I end up signing him to an open-ended deal. I mean, I could just let him go after the show, but I think that might be a little bit awkward. To start making sure I look to the bottom right-hand corner, because I'm used to this being up here to the top. Got Cody Hall, so I guess Noah's going to try and look. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with the... No, I don't want to advance multiple days. Whoa. 5 years. But with Big Cass, setting up a program with him and Cody Hall, I probably should set that before I actually go to the day of the show, because I don't trust it. Or this is the day of the show, but once I get to the show itself, I don't know if it'll let me mess much with the storylines. I think it might, but why take a chance? And where it says training, this list of dojos. So in theory, people would be coming out of here, and then some select talents I would imagine AEW would hire to send to me to get ready to come up to work for AEW. It's a big list of wrestlers. Don't worry, Filthy Tom. In due time, I'll bring you in, buddy. Unless I wait too long and he signs an exclusive deal somewhere. And this is the, like right here, it's WWE, NXT, UK. Really, it should, if that's the way it's, the idea is what I'm doing with Launch Wrestling, and then the other promotion, the other developmental promotion being Sharp with AEW, but I don't have them in there as an alliance. But I'm not too concerned about that right now. And it'd probably be too late at this point to try and retrofit it in. Maybe not, but due to time constraints, move ahead. Yeah, I was really just looking to find the... I'm looking to switch players. I'm thinking about roster when I hit that. Oh, here we go. I tend to forget about these buttons down here that have a lot of what I need. Hey, yo, how's it going? Oh, not too much, just playing some Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Trying to get an episode in before I start a Double or Nothing on pay-per-view tonight. How are you? Storylines. Right now, the only storyline I have is Gulak and Cain Velasquez. That was basically because it's considered hot. So, a couple more to add here. My show, I've created a company called Launch Wrestling. and it's a feeder promotion, a developmental promotion for AEW, but it's an all-men promotion. I set up a separate one called Sharp that's an all-women's promotion that serves as a feeder that allows, in particular, all women to get experience working the top of the card, as opposed to being stuck in the mid-card with me or the occasional chance to get to the top. This way, that puts them in a much better spot, at least in theory. So my show is a weekly program that I have here, and as far as weekly within game time. So I had the storyline too, and I'm not sure how this Cody Hall versus Big Cass storyline is going to come across. The fans might reject it, but they are both seen as a major star, although almost everybody is seen as a major star. Because my promotion's brand new, and even though I had some pretty good name talent on board, and even though I'm the developmental territory on the men's side for All Elite Wrestling, I had 12 people at my first show, and just there's no any way around that I can tell. Maybe I could have set the company at a different level when it started, but I didn't really think through that much. Enzo wanted creative control, and I was not willing to give it to him. So that's why I've got Big Cass, not Enzo. At some point, maybe I'll change my mind, but I've got a couple of people with creative control, but I've tried to limit that as much as possible. They had a confrontation on the first episode. So the idea is to build on that. I probably should have had the storyline already in place for that. Or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else in this story and have the first confrontation. I'll look here in a minute. But either way, I need to start the storyline for them. And this isn't as much of a storyline as aligning a manager with a talent. Enzo's great on the microphone, though. I tell you, I know the guy has a lot of heat on him in different circles, and I wouldn't hire him with the idea of him being primarily a wrestler. That's not his strong suit. He just happened to come along at a time when managers are nearly non-existent, at least in WWE. And so really the only way to make it work is having him as a tag team. The problem is he's not a big guy. He doesn't, normally you see a smaller wrestler at this level, they can work like crazy because otherwise good luck getting in there at WWE, but Enzo's so good on the microphone. But I look at the list of people that the audience had rejected, or they weren't happy to see. Make sure I get the wording right on that. Unhappy crowd. Here, I'll pull this part up here so you can see it. It's like they were unhappy about Big Cass, and they were unhappy about Cody Hall. I don't know how they're going to react to that. I've got Hawkins and Ryder in the main event. I don't know how they're going to react to that, but I already had that planned out that it was like a de facto tournament for the tag team championship. Both teams won, or I should say, yeah, Hawkins and Ryder won, and then the Revival FTR won. $2K20. Is that game finally working properly? Because to be fair, I haven't played it, but I know that game was riddled with major issues. But if you got it to working good, that'd be some good news from that. So what'll surprise you on your first show? I'll keep it simple here. It doesn't get too complicated with the storylines. So hopefully they'll make for a good pairing. We'll see. But again, this is a chance that I can take as a child promotion, as a developmental promotion. Maybe they'll click and it'll be great. Maybe they'll clash and we'll have to take it in a different direction very quickly. But the idea is to reestablish Connor and make people forget about the Ascension with him. And what better way to do it than to stick Alicia Fox there, have her do her crazy woman act, and then Connor there just smash a few people. Then we'll see what the crowd says. Oh, 2 days, no problems? Good. I'm glad to hear it. What system do you have it on? PS4? Oh. Yeah, Humberto. So Humberto turned heel on Ray. I bet that actually would be a very good program if allowed to work it to the top of their potential. All right, so we have them established. It's not a storyline per se. It's just they're aligned. And I have my concerns about Big Cass and Cody Hall from the fan reactions, but we'll see. Yeah, Humberto and Andrade. Yeah, I mean that would make a lot of sense. And the storylines here are open-ended. I've not messed with them much at all thus far, but this game has only been out a short amount of time. But you can see how there are previous segments it keeps track of, and like they'll tell you how if it's hot or cold, so it's a hot storyline, so at least people care about it to a degree, which is a good thing because that pairing there is going to be seen in my semi-main event tonight. And the only thing ahead of them is the match to determine the first launch World Tag Team Champs. Yeah, LAX, I think you'd have issues as far as that name being used elsewhere. A little bit of confusion. The New Millennia? Why not? Okay, I won't have Eastman yet. They just hired him to send to me. Which is fine, because I only have one manager making her debut on the show. I don't need to have a second. I mean, having a second manager is fine, but not debuting both on the same show. Unless you've got a really compelling reason to do so. But let me go ahead and advance. Save. Dave the Clown. Okay, we're not going to run Puerto Rico right now. It's not viable. Let's see, I have to set the... It still has the kind of weird interface when you launch a show. Oh, another 12. Lovely. Oh, that was the last show. Never mind. I hope we'll have more than a dozen people in this one. So, everybody's there as far as the bookings went, but I tried to pick a night where nobody was going to be bogged down particularly. Although some of these touring companies, there will be some overlap inevitably. It's just the way it tends to go. Okay. And this is part of the game where the interface annoys me a bit. We have to click on the word broadcasters, you have to just know that. It would be different if it was lit up, if it, the broadcasters was a different color. Then that's typically how it works with a hyperlink. I mean, I've been designing web pages for 25 years. I know how this stuff works, but it's easy to just click on the place you know to click, and once you get past that, as far as a learning curve goes, it should be good. Oh, so you got the everybody sorted on the proper roster. That has to be tough for them when they put a game together, because WWE has a way of abruptly changing course. And just with pro wrestling in general, you're going to have people that get injured, and they're going to be extenuating circumstances. Just part of it. But that's if you get up to date accurate, that's great. I'm glad to hear that the game's working, because I heard so many horror stories and people that were not happy about 2K20. But I'm sure it had to be tough for the developers, because there was a lot they had to take out of the game from their previous partner for whatever reason. I don't know the specifics on that. I haven't played the 2K series much at all in the last several years. The one with CM Punk on the cover I really enjoyed. But with the PlayStation 4, you couldn't do your own customized music. Like with 2013, what the one Punk was, that Brian Pillman is a viable downloadable character. But he has this terrible music, so I gave him Mind Games by John Lennon. It was great. So I'm still holding on to that PS3. At some point, I'll figure out how to record out of that, and I'll put it online just to make myself happy. So let me finish the rest of these YouTubes here. It's weird saying that as a plural. It sounds like somebody's out of touch. What's on the YouTubes? There we go. So this gets to be potentially big coverage anywhere, although it was a small audience for the first show. So you have to do this part first when you're booking a card. Then you make sure you go to your locker room controls. You only get one bite of the apple on this. I'm not going to pull a Bill Watts and try and bully people or convince them to make some changes. But you can meddle. And there's more information as far as the meddling goes this year. Like, it's not just where I feel like a random chance in previous versions of the game, at least to me. But this will at least tell you why it might or might not work. Well, we'll try anyway. Alright. Oh, so you just re-downloaded the game? Well, hopefully they made, between that first 2 weeks, now they've got it where it's running smoothly. I mean, there's a lot of talent in WWE, and plus you add in the wrestlers from the past, you've got a lot of choices. My first show, I was very concerned early when it was just nothing was breaking 40. Then finally ACH came out. Like, big Cass against Leo Bryan. The idea was not enhancement, but definitely a decisive win for Cass. And it got a 37-0. But it picked up. And Hero vs. Slater got 71 right in front of a dozen people. But it aired on YouTube, so if there was some exposure beyond just whatever ramshackle place we used to hold the show. So I've gone through the locker room controls. No absent workers to worry about. And over here's got the... And this is similar to 2016, only the way it looks is a little bit different. The venue. Stick with the Southeast, that's where my company is based. That's where we're going to be judged. So we're up to 14. Man, that really is a grassroots one at a time. But that's the only way to do it, as far as I can tell. I mean, in hindsight, maybe I should have set the company at a higher level, but I didn't, so it's maybe the more equitable way to go through it anyway. I'm not sure how equitable it is anyway to just abruptly create your own company to work with them, but you take some liberties with a video game. Keep being paranoid about this AEW Double or Nothing show starting, or the pre-show starting, or whatever. Because it shows 6:30 on the screen. And I'm guessing that's like a half-hour pre-show, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, my goal is to get through with this and this episode before that gets going, at least before the top of the hour. So I'm on the clock. So we're going to run Southeast. Generic venue is the one to go with, because that's where when you have 14 people showing up or whatever. And as far as I know, you can't go out and just hand out a bunch of vouchers, or you figure people would come in if the show's good enough. It would be able to create a fan base out of it, potentially. See, I thought Eastman wasn't on my roster yet. Well, I'm saving him for next week. The nice thing with this particular style, I emulated as much as possible AEW, with only a couple of exceptions where it's strictly men as far as the wrestlers go. But also got rid of the babyface and heel divide. I mean, you still have people that are going to be more of a heel and more of a face, but more like how New Japan does it, or I've compared it to how it is in Red Dead Redemption 2, where it's like that sliding scale. Oh, he's with the generic venue, which actually says generic venue. So now I start putting the show together. The way I've always done it is to start at the top and work your way down. See right there what I've got. You start at the bottom and work to the top. That's a much tougher way to do it. It's a good way to end up accidentally leaving out somebody important. Although with this, I have it set up where I won't have any sort of penalties if I leave somebody off a show. I found that to be very unrealistic. We're like a 500-person spot show. I don't want my A-talent to be belly aching about not working it when they're on a set money deal anyway, and it's just a spot show that I don't need them to pop the box office for. All right. Especially now that I've gotten used to it. the booking is much better in this game versus 2016 and before as far as what you can do. It used to be a hassle. Like you see what my arrow is on the screen there, top left. There was a separate page you had to go through for this, and then you come to this part. And if you want to go back, it was a lot of hard work thrown out. We'll show one thing. Hear me? There, I just get to scroll up at the bottom of my screen, or bottom of the document. I couldn't scroll any further down to make it show up without moving the box around. I've already got it where I want it. So referees. It's like Jimmy Corderas, excellent referee, but I'm paying $220 and travel. Mike Chioda, I was paid travel for him, $145, but look at that, 78 to 86. I mean, there's my head referee at this point. I got Todd Sinclair from Ring of Honor, but he has some other obligations. I'm trying to make a note of that. Plus, I got to pay his travel. He's only $110. Dropped down a little bit. Mickey Henson, $80. Justin King, $80. And Jeremy Marcus. I don't remember if I must have signed him. Either I signed him or they sent him down, but I don't know if they're going to do much as far as that goes with referees in this game. I just don't know. At this point, it doesn't matter because I've got him. But I don't have to use all 6 of those referees on a show. Not a 2-hour show like this, certainly. And then just pull this back up real quick to show. Oh, come on. There we go. With the road agents from the last show. That's where I've learned, okay. Not so much with those two. I love Gail Kim, she was like the top one for me. Her and Helms did well also. And then Saban and Scott D'Amore both were fine. Nobody complained about it per se, but they weren't receiving the rave reviews that Gail Kim and Gregory Helms got, at least from that first show. All right, so tag team match is our main event for the vacant. It'll be the inaugurally, the very first launch World Tag Team Champion. Title long enough, it runs off the edge of the scroll there, but you got the idea. And then just click down here on this part to assign them. So it's much more streamlined. You don't have to jump back and forth. You can see at a glance a lot of things. I wish it would default to exclude already booked. It never has in this series, though. At least to the best of my memory. All right, so our main event's going to be the winners of the 2 prominent tag team matches from last week, which is going to be the Revival of now FTR against Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. So the former Dash Wilder is now Cash Wheeler, and the former Scott Dawson is now Dax Harwood. Now, of course, Hawkins and Ryder will have to pick non-WWE names whenever things start to get back to normal again. We start having wrestling shows that are beyond just the large companies, making sure they fulfill their television obligations. Of course, it helps to look through on some of this to see, okay, how's the stamina, for example. We have to scroll down a bit to get to that. 7184, not bad. Oh, Matt Cardona? I don't know if I can change it at this point now I've got him in there, but that is good to know. Yeah, Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. One problem though, and this mod has been great, the Killing the Business mod, not a complaint, but it has their current name on there. There's not what they see, alter egos. Normally you click on that if there are other iterations, somebody with a different name or different photo, whatever, it shows up like that. Trying to think offhand of a good example. It's popping in my head offhand. Anyway, but you get the idea. So for the World Tag Team Championship, like 21 minutes. It's a 2-hour show, but it's done as if there aren't any commercials. So it's an 85-15 split as far as the percentage of matches versus percentage of angles / promos / videos, which comes down to 102 minutes for the matches and 18 minutes for the rest. So we'll go my ace referee, Mike Chioda, and Gail Kim. I've already gone through and taken out Hawkins and Amazing Red as far as being agents, because that was not a good fit for them at all in the last show. Gail Kim did an excellent job, so did Gregory Helms, but Kim seemed to do a little bit better, so I'm going to give her the shot. This is the part where I'll tell them who's going to win, who's going to lose. And so obviously with FTR going over, it's going to be either Cash Wheeler or Dax Harwood. We'll give it to Cash. And we'll have Hawkins put him over. We'll book it as an open match with a decisive win. And we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure what to expect with a main event with 2 of the 4 participants not having been very warmly received by the crowd on the last show. But this part of this is just a learning process for me as far as how this game plays out. There are a lot of unknowns, but in a good way, in large part. So there's our main event. It is a bit, I know there's plenty of room to have the long segment names, and I appreciate that, because if I have an 8-man tag, trying to abbreviate everything to fit can be a little bit of a hassle. But when you've got this far spaced apart, it becomes difficult once you have like a dozen things listed to keep track of what's where. And these arrows, the triangles up and down, I'm sure I'll end up cutting a promo on them later, because they really annoyed me the last time. It's like the user interface can be much better with certain things like that. Like not being able to scroll down more than one at a time. You can't skip page by page. But those are minor complaints in the grand scheme of things. Alright, so we have our main event set. And the semi-main also be a tag team match. So Slater, who lost on the first show in the main event, and the world title match with Chris Hero, him team up with Drew Gulak. Gulak has listed as a hot feud going on with Cain Velasquez. And then, so I brought in Jonathan Gresham as a one-off. As I noted, he has a lot of different companies that he's working for. And my company that's drawing 14 fans to an event's not going to be able to get priority over PWG or Ring of Honor, probably even Warrior Wrestling at this point. I like that it uses an ampersand. It doesn't write out A and D for and. That was something that it seemed like every time I had to change it in the old game, because that's the way it was set up. Unless you had a team, I guess the only positive was you could tell a team that you actually had established as a team, because if it had that ampersand in there, that was the thing I put in there. And the only reason that should even matter is because of space with the match listing information. All right. So Slater is interesting, though. Some guys that were on teams that lost last week still saw their popularity go up a little bit of a momentum on a losing side. But that was typically somebody that didn't drop the fall. So there's a lot of detail. It won't give you a specific number in many cases. It gives you a range, but that's more realistic. Anybody else, you're going to have variance. You're going to have some days you're better than others. It's just human nature. I don't see where it shows his momentum. Maybe that's something I look at on that screen. That would be a main screen kind of thing. Doesn't really matter, though, because the outcomes can be the same regardless. So, Gresham we brought in to do the job and hopefully have a good match. I could say have an open match, but that doesn't matter as much. Yeah, I guess I'll throw it in there. I'm not looking to job out Gresham or make him look bad. It's just I needed somebody in there to to help in the storytelling process, to have a good match. Then he can go on and do his thing, and we'll move on from here. Make sure the 3 guys that are coming back for next week aren't the ones that have to end up doing the job. Although Velasquez will be on the losing team here. And I try to be careful with the stunt bumps and crazy bumps because guys get injured that way. But if I got somebody as a one-off, let's see what they're willing to do. Okay. And that's the thing I've noticed. A lot of the guys won't take a bump. Well, kind of a setup for a tiny company, which I understand. But it didn't hurt to check. And it's still weird to me to have to X out of this, and this is how you save it. I can remove, add another note, but you do here, and then it shows up there. And that's taking a little bit getting used to for me. Let that go 15 minutes. I can always adjust it later if need be. And thankfully it lists it now as you add them. You can set it up and do it the other way if you want, but this way it starts with your main event and you work your way down. Like most people I would think would set it up that way. If you're booking bottom to top, you're going to run into trouble unless you really have stuff already planned out. And if you've already done that, you've already thought of it from the start or from the main event looking backward if you've got that kind of detailed or planning set. So the first defense of the Launch Pro Wrestling Sprint Championship, the 10-minute time limit match. It's like a melding of a CMLL, those blitz matches, those 10-minute quick ones that are really fun to watch, and then the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ TV title, or is defended every week on television. Only in that case with Smoky Mountain, if you defended it successfully 5 times, your reign would end and they would bring in somebody new. In this case, you keep going until either the champion loses or the champion's unable to be there to defend it with another obligation, or more likely through an injury. Because if somebody was going to have an obligation for the following week that I knew about, I wouldn't have them with the belt in all likelihood. So my champion is Leo Rush. Had a good match with ACH in the inaugural match. Defending against Fred Yehai. A little risky because Yehai did not get a warm response from the crowd in the last show. They're unhappy. And that was at a pre-show match he had. But Yehai's a good talent, so I'm going with him here. But ultimately, Leo Rush is getting the win. So I can go out there and tell him to steal the show. Although that can be risky, tell somebody to steal the show if they get I could tell them, because there are a couple of obligations I have because of what AEW has stipulated. Like, I'm not allowed to hire any brawlers or comedy wrestlers, which is fine because they really wouldn't fit my vision anyway. But it also requires me to have, working that style at least, requires me to have at least one storytelling match and at least one that's like car crash, or I should probably look this up as opposed to just guessing because I will need to know it. It's Wild Brawl, Mayhem, or Car Crash. That's the other one that's required. Or if I don't have one of those, it will definitely penalize me. Make sure I put in the proper notes. So the difference between Car Crash and Steal the Show is Steal the Show, it's not necessarily as dangerous. Now this is an 8-minute match. I don't want to get anybody hurt, but I'm going to see how this will go. I'll try to remember to tell it a decisive finish. The last game that I played in this series, the Total Extreme Wrestling 2016, I had a match where I said it was intended to be a time limit draw. So I put like 30 minutes for it or whatever. But I didn't put for it in the notes to be a time limit draw. So it went like 29:44 with a double disqualification, which is kind of weird. All right. We'll be back in like 2 minutes. Stand by. Okay, I'm back. So with Car Crash, Leo Rush, the winner, decisive finish. I won't tell it to have an open match. If they do, that's fine. The idea is that Leo Rush is going to have a decided definitive win. That's going to be the first defense of the title. It is a bit of a workaround as far as if you want to have two wrestlers face off or you have a time limit draw and it's not going to be off-putting to the fans, this is one way to do it. But in this case, it would be Rush getting the victory. I'm probably going to hold off a few weeks on it, having it go to a draw. Maybe not, but that's just in my head the way I'm thinking of it. Trying to establish it first and then show how draws can play in and the different variations that are possible. So, let's see. I didn't pay attention on the last match who I love that they tell you this. They warn you. I'm there yapping about sprint time and actually assign it. Now, this is in a different spot than it was on the board with the previous wave. That's because they redid it entirely for the better, I might add, as far as booking goes. I need to look here and see. Make some notes as far as so I can remember who I've got working what. So, like Gail Kim and Jimmy Corderas are the ref and road agent / producer for the first match. This one's got, or should I say, I said Corderas, and I meant Mike Chioda. I'll probably have Corderas do this match. Mike Chioda is listed between a 78 and 86 as a referee. Corderas is actually 220 a show, plus travel. So I may pass on him. Instead, just do like Todd Sinclair and Gregory Helms as the referee and producer / road agent, respectively. So Sinclair and Gregory Helms. I already booked this segment. That's essentially the save button. Leo Rush and Fred Yehai. Have Mickey Henson as the referee. Double back and have Gail Kim as the road agent. There is no rhyme or reason to how much or how little you can use a given road agent from what I've seen in past versions of this game, but I'm not sure about this one. This is part of the learning experience. I was thinking Mickey, and I got to Mike. So Mickey Henson and Gail Kim for this sprint championship match. Right, next up. Not quite sure how I'm going to do this from a timing standpoint as far as how long to let him go. But in the game, Bob Holly, I've got him as a one-off here. I mean, there's a reason that in the game he's about to retire. I wish if I could click this once, it would do an entire page down. That would be nice. Because if I want to do one at a time, I just click here. But instead, that's part of this interface I don't like. I'm trying to complain about it too much, but I'm also trying to give you my honest, realistic thoughts about what I do and don't like with the game. Stamina's not bad. I don't want to just squash the guy. I'm not trying to make him look bad. I just want to make Connor look dominant. He's got the stamina, but I don't have to worry too much about that right now. I'm not trying to have just some classic match. I'm trying to establish Connor as a monster force that even someone as tough as Bob Holly have a tough time fending off for very long. 6 minutes. I'm dominating. I'm not sure how Bob Holly's going to react to that. We'll see. Decisive win. I can make this the storytelling match. I'm not sure how much this will affect things if I do it this way. But now I've got to find out. I mean, there's a couple of variables when you've got the older wrestler that's in for a one-off, the guy that you want to have as a dominant winner, but then to do it with, of course, storytelling to an audience that might be more inclined to lean towards the more exciting type of matches. But with Connor against Bob Holly, I mean, unless they just stiff each other like it's Spring Stampede '94, there's going to be an upper limit to that, I would think. Let's see, as far as the referees go, I think I'll cycle back around to Mike Chioda, and I'll have Gregory Helms be the agent. Helms is already listed there. Mike Chioda's right there. And then I think if I only bring in like 4 of the 6 referees, like if I'm not bringing in Jimmy Corderas, I'm not paying his $220 and travel costs. And that's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I'm still trying to run this like a responsible businessman would. I've got it set up with Alicia Fox as his manager here for Connor, but it's going to be some time before we get a whole lot as far as answers on chemistry a given pair of wrestlers or workers would have. They're big about giving the sexual orientation and that personal information for everybody. I was trying to find out if he has a manager listed. I mean, I know that he does, but on this screen it doesn't seem to show it. Not a big deal. Go ahead and book it. I was afraid Bob Holly might complain, but I guess not. Managed by Alicia Fox. I don't like it that I have to come out to this screen to see this bit of the information. It reminds me of 2016, how that was. I mean, it's better now than it was in 2016, but I wish this sort of thing would be possible to find while you're in the midst of booking a match. Not the end of the world, though. All right, I do need to pick up the pace a little bit here. Top of the hour is 20 minutes away. I feel like my news producer days when I'm trying to finish the last group of teases and kicker stories and whatever else. World headlines, knowing I've got a deadline to freeze the rundown at 3:30 a.m. I did that for years, too. Morning news producer, you're working overnights, which is why now I think my internal clock got broken doing that, because now I stay up very late working on stuff and then sometimes live streaming as well. Not ideal for an American audience, but the nice thing with the internet, people, time zones all around the world, they can watch if they're so inclined, or always watch later if they want to for whatever reason. Okay, so we've got the first 4 matches set. Next up, because the Colognes, they lost for me in week 1, but they really got over a lot better than I thought they would, so. See, that's cooled momentum. Well, we're going to turn that around. At least try to. So Epico and Primo. And I'm going to have them against the team of Amazing Red and Chris Sabin. And the reason I have those two teamed up is because on the last show I had Red and Sabin on the same team in a 6-man tag with Cain Velasquez that beat Drew Gulak and Bestia 666 and Eris. So the teams, it's like I mentioned a bunch of them, but it's a little bit different as far as developmental, because these are guys that were sent down from AEW, and I was told to kind of make them work. So there's almost no exposure for them yet, but he's 24 years old. I had a team up on the last show, so they have one, whatever one experience means, where you cash that in. It's like 1 out of 100, of course. So we're going to go with this. A little bit of time to fill some time. We have 102? Yeah, 102 minutes to fill with this format in a 2-hour program. 102 of the wrestling action, 18 of the promos and angles and videos. Here I'll use Jeremy Marcus. And if I wanted to choose from anybody, I just go from buy roll to all, which is slightly different than the way it was worded in 2016, but it's still very similar. So if you know the psychology or the thought behind that, it's very easy to figure it out, at least in theory. All right. No, that's not the correct node. So we have Epico the win. And I've tried to make, like in my notes that I take, try and keep track of who lost a given fall, because this game seems to punish you more if you drop the actual fall in a multi-man tag or even a 2-on-2 tag versus the person actually dropped the fall with their stats dropping almost usually, as you would imagine, because they were on the losing side and the one that lost personally, as opposed to everybody else on the team. Although working in front of 14 people, I don't know how much of a difference that truly will make. But treat it as such. I made sure my notes put keep Saban strong. So we're gonna have Red do the honors. This will cut away a little bit from the match score overall, but I'm really not too worried about that. Keep Saban strong. That's where there's a lot of stuff that's been added as far as new extras, and you scroll down from here and there's a lot you can choose from. Like if you want to find that time limit draw finish, you've got to like dig down to there. But we have what we need. Regular match, Epico wins, Red drops the fall. Saban's on the losing team, but Saban to be kept strong. I have to X, even though I should hit save, but that's not how this is set up. The notes are there. The roll, we got the referee and the agent we want, Jeremy Marcus and Gregory Helms. Actually, I've had to, let me think about this. So I've had 2 matches with Helms already set to, I'll let Scott DeMore handle this one. Only downside is that I'll have Saban do some stuff later on the card. I could just not have Scott DeMore here and just, I guess, not pay him for the week because he would be making an appearance. But I'm not sure. I'm not too worried about that right now anyway. That bill's going to Jacksonville. Now, how they react to it remains to be seen. That's where there's a little nuance in this game. All right. So we're to 72 minutes. We have to reach 108 to be on target. Excuse me, 102 to be on target. So it's 30 more minutes, including the setup times for the matches. I've got penciled in 3 more, so we'll make this work. ACH, who lost in the first match ever for the Launch Wrestling Sprint Championship to Leo Rush last week. Gets his momentum back a bit. Although you see it says warm momentum, even though he lost last week. And there's more variance to that with different personalities in this game than what I remember from the past. That's a positive. It makes it a little more difficult, but more realistic, and I can handle that. All right. Like 10 minutes with these two. This is what Bestia's stamina is. I don't want to just presume, because sometimes a presumption and I can look at the right place, that might help. Stamina, okay, he'll be good. And yeah, stamina stronger as well for ACH. 10 minutes total. We can have Todd Sinclair be our referee, and we'll have Gail Kim as the road agent. I think that'll work well. Be sure not to overlook this part, though. Just sit in there and let them decide among themselves who the winner's going to be. It's not going to cut it. Open match. I'm not trying to bury Bestia, but I want to make sure ACH is presented in a strong light. I'm not going to keep it if he says he will, but I'm curious. Well, he will. I'll save that for later when Bestia's in a higher profile match. But in front of 14 people, we can save the stunt bumps for another time. Make sure I include this, a decisive win. And luckily, that's what I prefer in my pro wrestling, and that's what this company is set up to have an audience to prefer. So that worked out very well as far as my individual interest in the way I would do things in real life and in the game. All right, so we'll book ACH and Bestia 10 minutes, so it's 12 minutes total. And that's going to push us to 84 minutes on the show. So there's 18 minutes to go to fill with these final two matches. Six-man tag. You're going to lose 3 minutes of non-wrestling time, and that's just how it goes. Cody Hall teaming up with Jesse Goddard and Kenny Doan. Those two were successful as a team in week 1. The fans weren't all that happy to see them, but they got the win. They beat the developmental guys, Jimmy Lloyd and Josh Briggs, will have on my pre-show this week. So it makes sense for them as, again, I don't have like a face-heel divide per se, but it's more like how in New Japan, you know that Suzuki-gun is going to be more towards the heel side than Chaos, or Great Bash heel, or however else you want to compare it. And then maybe Bullet Club's to the right of Suzuki-gun as far as on the good guy, bad guy, whatever the word be, not pendulum, but spectrum. So it'll be, and I've mentioned this before with my booking, I almost always book the winners to be listed first. That way I keep it straight in my head, and at a glance I can tell, looking back, who won and lost. Christian Casanova and Chris Melendez, so some newer names in here, along with Big Cass. We'll keep Cass strong. We'll have Hall's side win. This advances the Hall-Cass storyline. Now, how well this actually works remains to be seen. All right, so we got the team set up. There we hit save, and there's a road agent notes. Since the focus of the program is Cody Hall against Big Cass, I'll give Cody the win. For now, I'll put Casanova in. Let me go with Melendez. Decisive win, yes. Open match, yes. It's regular. To save it, I have to hit X. I'll just have to get used to that. Now, why does it have and there and not an ampersand? Where it has an ampersand between Goddard and Doan? Is it because they're a tag team? Okay, we're not doing commas here. Maybe if I'm out of room or whatever, I'll use slashes instead. That takes up less space, but I prefer it where it's definitive. But this segment's not going 15 minutes. Really 9, which is kind of short, but due to time constraints. So in theory, I've got 6 minutes for this. My opener will be No Way Jose against Hallow Wicked. I can always trim a match or two back, a minute or two, if I need to make up a little bit of time. But it's not like this has to be a long match. It's to warm the crowd and have a little bit of fun to start with before things get really serious. Although Hallow Wicked's going to be bringing his menacing gimmickry. It's going to be a 6-minute match, really. I'm not trying to bury Hallow Wicked. It's just the idea is No Way Jose wins. The crowd's happy to get out of the gate, and then you have the heels start doing things to make the fans mad. You get the emotional roller coaster, and you get that kind of special area that pro wrestling falls into because they can dictate the finishes. You can, at least in theory, guide the audience along in that emotional roller coaster of a show. That's how a normal company would run things. And unfortunately, because WWE is not run like a normal company would be run, it has a poisonous effect on the entire industry, at least in my opinion. Decisive win for No Way Jose. If it's open, that's fine. If it's not, I don't really care, so I'll leave that to the discretion of the agent. Oh, I'll save this for the moment, because I need to look here and see who I had as the... Yeah, Sinclair's working match number 6, so I won't have him here. Here I'll put, go with Mickey Henson. And then I'll go Chris Sabin for the agent. used him yet in that role tonight. So that's saved for match number 7. Match number 8. Okay, Marcus, that's fine. And then, you know what, Marcus Helms, that's actually what I would have done myself. So sometimes things work out. Okay, so we're booked. Now, I do have to add the sizzle to the steak. And by that I mean the promos and the videos and all. 18 minutes of it. There's a lot of stuff that's freestyle. So this gets very much into nuance and approaches to pro wrestling I don't care about. Like these elaborate things. Give me the guys talking to each other, give me a brawl, whatever, that's fine, but I don't have to have like some sort of a overarching, long, complicated story. And I can just go with their overness. I'll set a video for like a 3-minute opener. Why is I know it says none when I started, but it's weird to have it click up to that and it starts at PB Smooth as opposed to starting at A. Just a little thing. So there's Wheeler and Hardwood. That'd be Hawkins and Ryder. Okay, this interface leaves something to be desired. Alright. 3-minute angle height video. I probably could have just done that to begin with. There. So is their overness. I don't know why you need an agent for your promos. I'll give Gail Kim for the agent for the promo for this video. And this annoys me, just have to move it. Stupid triangles. You gotta jump each one to match it. Otherwise you start getting out of order. And I know the idea is they put front together, or put together a show, front, a bit down, but when it comes to the angles, I'll put that stuff in separately. I don't like that it does it that way. Oh well. Alright, so we got a promo for them. One thing's gonna be helpful. I'm almost out of time. Do a search for just, something for microphone if nothing else. Okay. Well, Alicia Fox, I'll have her segment. That's actually, I need to set the beginning. I'll have Prazak, I have Epico Cologne. I've had them cut a promo, but I'll have it be where it only counts for Epico's speaking ability. It'll work around to the way this is set up. So for Epico, we'll put microphone. And then Primo, I'll say that blank. And I don't think Amazing Red or Chris Sabin are all that high as far as popularity goes, so there's no need to even put that in there. Primo cut a promo on Amazing Red and Chris Melendez. Alright. Segment. Oh, come on. This triangles thing, this is the dirt worst, come on. And I go too far with it, I say, oh, I have to go back down a few spots, and where these triangles, not where I'm going to put the thing. Yeah, this is not fun, this part of it. Okay, we're done with that part. So we're at 110 minutes, we got 10 minutes to fill. Let's see, manager. This will be one where I'll use one of the preset things. Oh, come on. I'll type in manager because this thing can't make anything easy. hype my manager. Reveal a new client. Well, the reveal would really be before the match. Okay, I'm skipping it. Let's do this one my way. Alright, freestyle, so. Oh, come on. Prazak welcomes the crowd to tonight's show. So that'll be our opener, although he will be interrupted by Alicia Fox. And because he's got the microphone too, I'll keep him being Dave Prazak in there. Alicia Fox debuts and reveals she will debut a new wrestler tonight. Okay, 5 minutes to go. Rush Fred Yay High. Really be for Connor and Bob Holly. This is where I'll add the Angle manager. So we're gonna type it in again because he's not challenged. Come on, interview. No. No. Yes. Although it has her for entertainment, not microphone, so maybe it will be as. No, I don't want to do it that way. That wasn't what I was trying to do. Book the Angle. Thank you. This way I can have Alicia Fox right on her microphone. Because Connor's popularity is, it's high, but I don't know if it's going to help any. Although, yeah, okay, I'll put overness. We'll see. It's not a big deal. Fox reveals her new client, Connor. So now I got a triangle game here to put this thing up. Alright, so grab it there, and then 3 more minutes. I'm going to hype video for Slater and Cain Velasquez leading into their match. Alright. Yes, I want to watch. Well, no. Yeah, watch now. Yes, please. Okay, I guess they're doing the hype at the very end. I guess there was a pre-show to this. I saw a different pre-show online earlier. A little bit piecemeal as far as the way their pre-stuff goes. But, you know, the more people you can reach, the better. So they're about to start the pay-per-view, so I'm going to get this last part done. I'll stop the feed, and then on the other side of the pay-per-view a little later tonight, we'll get back into it. So 3 minutes to go. Cain Velasquez. Heath Slater. Video. Caps. Growing rivalry between Velasquez and actually Heath Slater, not Velasquez and Heath Slater. I'm starting to write down another name, but no, that's not it. So okay, 3 minutes. We'll see how over these guys really are. Helps to it. I do have to check real quick to make sure my angle. Come on. And I'm going to complain about this every time. I know it because I don't have the filter in my head that I normally do because I'm streaming. I'm trying to talk to people, so I verbalize things I normally think. I only think really angry things as opposed to saying them, but so it goes. There we go. All right, so we're set with 120 minutes. I'm going to add the pre-matches when I come back on the other side here of Double or Nothing, doing the opening promo. So I probably should pay attention to this since I paid $50 for it, don't you think? All right. Oh, they're doing a thing for Shad. All right, so that's it for this episode, this broadcast. So I'm going to have some stuff to figure out before we do the show. We'll stop right here. We'll be back later tonight with episode number 7 of Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Thanks for watching.